Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to see you today. What a glorious day. I keep expecting snow and then welcome to the first Sunday of Advent. We will light the candles soon, but I was going to do this at the end of the service, but I think I'll do this now. This is the first Sunday of Advent, and the first Sunday the theme is always hope. We always begin with hope. And hope is this lovely, hopeful thing. And I found this on my Facebook feed, and I thought, you know what, this is the kind of hope that I need right now. People speak of hope as if it's this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spiders' webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of the cobblestones in her hair, and just spat out a tooth as she rises for another go. And I thought, you know what? That is the kind of hope I need right now. The one that's down and dirty and willing to fight for us, no matter how frustrating or confusing or whatever it is right now. We need that kind of hope that's going to fight for us. So may your Advent season have the hope, the kind of hope that you need right now. I invite you to put your feet on the ground if they reach. And if they don't, just settle back in your chair. Take a deep breath. And maybe envision the kind of hope that you need right now. Maybe it is something delicate and tender. Maybe it is something tough and fierce. Maybe it's something in between. But breathe in that kind of hope. And then I invite you to take your hands and face them down toward the ground. And just feel the energy going from you into God's good and holy earth and rising up from God's creation into you. And then I invite you to take your hands and hold them up, palms facing towards you, in this part of the world where from time immemorial the Halkominum speaking peoples have lived here, have cared for this place, have made this place their own. And the Halkominum word that often goes with this gesture is Haichka. Haichka, which means thank you. Thank you for the care that has been in this place, for the people who have lived here, and that we get to take our place here in this part of the story. And then you can either do a little blessing, or make a little window, look around at everyone here. God's beloved community. Thank you for showing up. And then, my all-time favorite, give yourself a hug. God's beloved creature. Thank you for showing up this morning. Amen. Thank you for that piece of music. Do you want to oh. No. Yes. Yes. I made a mistake. I'm looking at this. Just before we invite the children off to Sunday school, I'll invite John and Corey to come and start us off with our Advent candle lighting.
Come, let us go up to the mountain, to the house of God, so that we can be taught God's way and go on God's path.
What do you hope for in the new world?
I hope for a future that is more amazing than anything I could ever imagine. I hope for the healing of creation. I hope for good mental health and wellness. I hope for a world where everyone seeks the good.
Advent is the beginning of this new world, a better world where we can dare to hope boldly.
May it be so.
Hope is growing.
Really good.
They need a little help.
Struggling.
All right. Different hope.
Focus, try again. We're going to we'll sing different verses of this throughout the Advent season. I invite you to stay seated as we sing number 6, The Candles Burning, verse 1, and the children and teachers can head off to Sunday school. In God's house, everyone is welcome. Those who seem like they have it all together, and those who feel like the world is falling apart. No matter who we are, there is room for us here. With that confidence, we turn to God in prayer, speaking the truth of our lives. Please join in the prayer of confession that's printed in the bulletin. God of today and God of tomorrow, you say, bring your full self. There's room for you here. But we say, our lives are too messy. You say, bring your hopes and dreams. There is room for you here. But we say, it's too risky to hope. You say, bring your grief and your prayers. There is room for you here. But we say, some things are easier to forget. God of today and God of tomorrow, we know in our hearts that there is room for us here. Forgive us for withholding our full selves from you. Forgive us for giving only our Sunday best. Help us to remember today and tomorrow, there's room for every story. Amen. Hear the good news. We who feel scattered are held together. We who have lost our way are forgiven and found. And we who are lonely are brought into the fold and are told there is room for you here. From generation to generation, this is the good news of the gospel. In Jesus Christ, we are held, forgiven, found, and welcome. Thanks be to God. Amen.
The Old Testament reading this morning is from Isaiah chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. The word that Isaiah, son of Amoz, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All nations shall stream to it. Many peoples shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk into the light of the Lord.
The reading from Matthew is a fun one, so buckle up. The genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah. An account of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. And Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez, the father of Hezron, and Hezron, the father of Aram. And Aram, the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab, the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon, the father of Salmon. And Salmon, the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz, the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah, and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Salathiel, and Salathiel the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abdud, and Abdud the father of Elkiam, and Elkiam the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliud, and Eliud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Mathan, and Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, to whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And from David to the deportation, 14 generations. And from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations. Here ends our reading. I think let's switch up the hymns. I think after that one we should probably sing Bring Many Names. Number 268 in Voices United.
Celebrated
There are a couple more verses, but sometimes you don't need to have all the names. So what's in a name? When I was at the meeting in Whitehorse with the executive of the Pacific Mountain region of the United Church, our president asked each of us to share something about our names. What does your name mean? Is there a story behind your name? Now, my name is pretty ordinary. Catherine just means the pure one. What are you laughing at over there? Usually that's followed by pure what? But I wasn't named after anyone. And my mom's maiden name was Kelly, and my mom kind of wanted to call me Kelly, but they didn't really settle on that. So they decided on Catherine with a K. So that's why it's got the K. Now, some of my colleagues, they had really interesting, really lovely stories behind their names. There were cultural identities. There were names that represented a place or a people, or stories about being named by or after important and beloved people. And I was so taken with the depth of the stories that when I was asked to lead an opening reflection for the meeting I was at in Toronto, I did the same thing. I asked people to share the story of their names. And again, it led to this depth of personal sharing that really surprised me. But it shouldn't have surprised me. It shouldn't have surprised me. Names are powerful. Names are personal. Names are important. And I think I really understood that when it came to naming our children. I like to joke with our firstborn, Beth had a spreadsheet with lists and criterias and restrictions and hopes. And I walked around going, the baby will tell us its name when it's born. No, I really said that. But we thought and we prayed and we talked about the names that we would give these little beings that we hadn't even met yet, that they would carry with them for their lives. Even the dog. We were getting a dog as a family. We sat down and we made a list of names that we liked. And we had discussions about what we should name him. Names are personal. Names are important. Think about your own name. Think about the names that you gave your children. How you felt when you heard the names of nieces or nephews or grandchildren. Names carry powerful memories. I've heard from teachers that it's really hard to name a child because there are so many different associations with different children you've taught over the years, each with feeling of hope or frustration or affection or memory. Names are important. Names are important, and speaking them out loud, it brings the memory, honors the presence, invites people in. About 25 or so of us gathered on November 6th in the Memorial Garden, where we brought pictures of people and some pets, people that we know and love who have died, and we spoke their names out loud. And after each of their names, we said the Spanish word presente, present, to honor and invite and commend these beloved people to the communion of saints that surround us. Names are important. But not just the names of people. The names of things are important. Feelings, systems, powers. To know the names give us power. There are ancient tales and beliefs about knowing the true name of someone or something can give you power over them. Think of the fairy tale of Rumpelstiltskin. Remember the one? Farmer goes around bragging that his daughter can spin straw into gold, and so the king says, all right, and locks the daughter up and demands that she spins straw into gold. And an imp shows up and saves the woman by spinning all of the straw into gold, but demands her firstborn child as a payment. And the only way she can get out of this is by learning the imp's name, Rumpelstiltskin, and it breaks the spell. Naming injustice, naming systemic oppression, or racism, or sexism, or homophobia, it identifies it for what it is and refuses to permit it to continue unchecked. naming things that devalue or degrade or dehumanize or destroys, naming these things for what they are. It brings them out of the shadows where they hide. Names are important. Ancient Hebrew people, even some modern day Jews, believe they should never speak God's name because of the third of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not take God's name in vain. Beginning of the week, when I read the passage from Matthew that's assigned for today, I started laughing. And I told Beth in the office, make sure the volunteer knew to only read the Old Testament. You're welcome. It's the kind of reading people dread, right? all those names, and why? Why are there lists and lists of names, and why on earth do we start Advent with all of these names? Well, because names are important. You caught the reference to Babylon? Oh yeah. And my not so small obsession with Babylonian exile? It's right here. 14 generations from Abraham to David, 14 from David to the exile, and then 14 from the exile to Joseph. And every one of them named. Remember that the Israelites at that time, they marked who was a true Jew if you could trace your lineage back through being exiled to Babylon. So you needed to know the names. Now our theme for Advent is from a Sanctified Arts latest resource. It's called From Generation to Generation. And they took this name from the line in Mary's Magnificat. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. And the creators write that they were inspired by the idea that God's promise, God's dream for creation, it's not for the here and now, but has existed for generations before we were even thought of. And it will continue for generations to come after us. We're part of a larger story, a story that began in the beginning and continues to unfold. And I've always loved that idea. I use it in our land acknowledgement. We are part of a larger, unfolding story. But now, this time of year at Christmas, well, Christmas is all about stories, isn't it? Christmas is all about unfolding story of treasured rituals and practices, things that have been handed to us from our parents, from our grandparents, from our great-grandparents, rituals and practices that we hand on to our children and grandchildren, watching how they adapt and change them and integrate them into their own lives. The authors write, the stories, scriptures, and traditions of the Christmas season have been passed down to us throughout the generations. Many of us enter this season with a swell of memories and emotions as vast as the cultural and religious rituals that this holiday holds. Like a tapestry woven throughout time, the Christmas story weaves us in. Remember how God has shown up in the past to continue the work of collective liberation, to behold the presence of God in flesh and bone. The stories, the hymns, the food, the decorations, all of it speaks to this. And Mary understands it. Mary understands this. When she agrees to be part of this plan, she sings of God's redemptive, creative, expansive work stretching back through the generations. She sings that good news transcends time and space. It was and is bigger than just her. Christ is coming for collective liberation. God's redemption is at work for years to come. Therefore, the promise is meant to be lived out and passed on from generation to generation. So when we read this list of names, it kind of makes it more personal. Because names are personal. Names are personal. And when we read this genealogy from Matthew, we get a sense that these were real people with hopes and dreams and struggles of their own. I love this study Bible, which I put down somewhere, this one. It writes about the genealogy of Matthew. It says that things get even more interesting with a closer look at all the people mentioned in this list. There's a wide assortment of groups and social classes, patriarchs and slaves, kings and peasants, men and women, Jews and non-Jews. Rahab is named. Rahab was a prostitute. She's the one who helped Joshua and his friends over the city wall in Jericho before those walls came a-tumbling down. Ruth is named. Ruth was a foreigner. She was fleeing famine and poverty in her own country, keeping her mother-in-law, Naomi, company in her old age. The lineage in Matthew, it actually spells out that David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. Wasn't supposed to be doing that. Remembering that the great King David was flawed and broken too. And God worked through them all. God worked through them all, not the perfect, not the righteous, but the flawed, the outcast, the refugee, the sinners, the kind of people that Jesus hung out with, proclaimed radical and abundant acceptance and welcome for. So when I participated in the 2 meetings where we shared the stories of our names, well, it felt like we slowed down a little and really noticed the people and understood them and where they came from a little bit more deeply. We offered our own name and our own story into the circle, and it felt that there was space to be heard and valued and understood, and that we were part of a larger story. And I closed the reflection that I was leading by remembering a quip I read somewhere about how when being asked to define love, a child said, "Love is when your name feels safe in someone's mouth." Yeah, your name feels safe in someone's mouth. So this Advent season, this preparing season, the season that always begins, has for centuries before us and will for centuries to come, begins with hope. This Advent season, when you're taking out the decorations and you're participating in the traditions and the rituals, when you're making the food, you're filling the house with a scents that just smell like Christmas. Speak your name. Speak your name. Even if it's a little whisper, speak your name and speak the names of the people in your story, in your life. Speak their names and remember you are part of a great story. The story of God's redemptive, transformative, creative love that stretches from generation to generation. Thanks be to God. Amen. We'll sing number 5, All Earth's Waiting.